Good evening. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. My name is Robbie, and tonight we'll talk about as well as learn a little something about why iron is important in the body. I know everybody's busy with the holidays and everything going on, but I do not want to take up too much of your time, so we'll shoot for about 20 minutes on this lesson. And again, feel free after class. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. But let's go ahead and jump right on into it. It's very common for children and women to have low iron levels in their bloods. It's also known as Iron-Deficiency Anemia, and introducing the right foods into the diet can easily prevent this. Everyone can benefit from eating iron-rich foods, whether or not they have anemia. Eating iron-rich foods can also give us energy. It can help children's bodies and brains grow and develop better. It can help us from getting as many infections and headaches. Some of the points that we want to walk away with tonight is that we want to be able to identify some of the risks of having low iron levels in our body, some of the benefits of having healthy iron levels in our body, as well as knowing different varieties of iron-rich foods that we can incorporate into our diet, and then also describe ways that we can combine foods for you and your family to get the biggest impact out of iron. Iron is very important, especially for children, to make sure that the body cells get enough oxygen. And without iron, children develop anemia since they can't produce enough red blood cells. If you don't have enough iron in your body, it's hard for the brain to work at its best. It's hard to think well as remember things. So it's important also for development and learning. Incredibly, iron deficiency is one of the most common nutrient deficiencies in children in the United States. It's estimated up to 15% of toddlers are iron deficient. But now let's talk about some of the risks of having low iron levels. And I think one of the biggest things that everybody's heard is having anemia or iron deficiency anemia. So anemia, what it is a condition where the body has a reduced number of red blood cells circulating throughout the body. And with that reduced number of healthy red blood cells, the body can't get enough oxygen to all the parts of the body. We need to get the oxygen to the brain, all to our organs, to our cells, tissues, as well as muscles. And the only way that we can get that oxygen and get enough of it is through having a sufficient amount of red blood cells to help carry that. So some of the possible symptoms of having anemia I'm going to talk about. But just because you have one of these real quick one time, I wouldn't rush off and think that, I have anemia. These are just some of the symptoms, and, if you have some of these symptoms over an extended period of time, or if you have multiple of these symptoms over an extended period of time, then you might definitely want to look into it. And always, if you ever have any questions or concerns about your health, contact your physician. But some of the ones we want to talk about, in infants, all babies cry, but if you feed them, you change them, and they get all the sleep that they need, they should be okay. But, after you've done all that and they're weak and they're tired and they're still fussy and cranky, that could be a symptom of having low iron in their body. So that's one thing to look for. Also, irritability, headaches and dizziness. But again, like I said, if you wake up on the wrong side of bed and you're cranky today, don't run out and think that you have anemia, But if it happens, day after day, and you have headaches on top of it and you start getting dizzy, that you might want to start looking into it, eat iron-rich foods as well as contact your physician. Shortness of breath, having brittle fingernails and toenails is one of the symptoms. Pale skin, having different and weird food cravings. You know, there's people out there that they get cravings to start eating dirt, start eating mud and clay, and it's the body screaming for iron, and it triggers this natural effect, and they start craving eating mud or clay. So that's one of the weird food cravings out there, and then loss of appetite as well. You know, and there's others, but these are some of the major ones. Um, some of the consequences of having anemia. You know, we talked about some of the symptoms. Now let's talk about some of the consequences. In infants and children's, a major one is neurological disorders. You know, because they're not having enough healthy red blood cells to carry the oxygen to the brain to help it develop. So that causes neurological disorders, and we don't want that to happen. Also, increased susceptibility to infections such as respiratory infections. As they get older, decreased school and work performances. You know, and this isn't just children. It does affect children a lot more, but it's also women as well as men. There are other reasons that men can come down with anemia, again, due to diet or major loss of blood. So decreased school and work performance, like I said, you know, that's one of the consequences. Difficulty learning or poor intellectual development. You know, the brain's not developing. Also, growth retardation. You know, if the iron levels are decreased over a prolonged period of time. And then back to women, the big thing, you know, again, it's loss of blood. So, you know, women sometimes lose a large amount of blood monthly, as well as right after childbirth. You know, they still continue to lose blood. So that's why they're more susceptible to anemia. Also, it also increases the risk of having a premature child, a child with low birth weight, and also infant mortality. So, women, make sure that you take your prenatal vitamins, eat iron-rich foods, and you know that way that we can cut this off at the pass. Also, for a child, the first 6 months of its life, it has iron stored in its body from the mother. You know, so during the child's development while in the womb, it's getting all its first 6 months of life's worth of iron from the mother. So please ensure that you eat the iron-rich foods while you're pregnant, as well as taking your prenatal vitamins. Now we've talked about some of the risks of having low iron in the body. Let's talk about some of the great things that iron does for ourselves as well as our children. Well, it's iron helps form the hemoglobin, and what hemoglobin is it helps carry the oxygen throughout the body to the brain, to the organs, to different muscles, and every single cell in our body. It also helps with muscle function. The iron is a vital element in muscle health and is found in myoglobin, which is a muscle protein, because myoglobin carries the oxygen from the hemoglobin to diffuse it throughout the muscle cells, and this helps the contraction of the muscles. Brain function, about 20% of the oxygen in our bloodstream is used by our brain. So iron helps supply the oxygen to our blood by making it very important to the brain health. Iron is an important participant in energy metabolism in the human body. This process is how energy is extracted from the consumed foods, subsequently distributed throughout all the parts of the body. Also, concentration. Iron, when consumed in sufficient amounts, can help you focus, concentration, and energy, which will boost cognitive and mental performances. Increased flow of blood to the brain due to the iron's red blood cell activity is what results in this important benefit. So, you know, you want to be smarter, eat a lot more iron-rich foods. So, are we getting enough iron in our diet? Like I said, the easiest way for our children to receive enough iron is through the foods that they eat. Um, and like I stated, different foods are a little bit more rich in iron. If anybody remembers the Popeye the Sailor Man song, he says he's strong to the finish because he eats a spinach, and what that is he's getting his iron from his dark leafy greens or spinach, and like we just talked about, the myoglobin from the hemoglobin, which helps the contraction of the muscles and all the other cells in our body. So I just thought that was something a little curious. But there are many other foods other than just dark leafy greens. There's many of them. And the pamphlet that I handed out as everyone entered, I have a small list of foods inside there as well that we'll take a look at in a little while. But like I said, children have about 6 months worth of iron stored up in their body that they receive from the mother. But once they get about 6 or 7 months of age, they should start getting their iron from their foods. And this can start off with fortified baby cereal. And this is going to be made with the breast milk and or with iron fortified infant formula. We definitely want to push the breast milk. That's the most nutrient rich source of everything that the baby needs, is a breast milk. But if for any reason that you cannot produce that, then you can go to an iron fortified infant formula. And as this goes on, and the baby can start to swallow and go on a little bit more foods, we can start to introduce a little bit more solid foods. But when I say solid, I'm talking more mashed and pureed foods. Things like scrambled eggs, cut that up real small. Cook spinach or kale or other dark leafy greens. Cook it really good and then cut it up real small for them. Mashed beans, lentils. Just take a fork, you cook them real good, and then take a fork and squish them down. We want to purchase the beans without really any seasoning, any flavor. We just want beans. We don't want, this name brand of baked beans with sauce and all that. We just want straight beans. Heat them up on the stove top, let them cook for a while, cool down, and then mash them up with your fork or something like that. And that's going to be an excellent source of iron. As an infant, as your child starts to develop a little bit better and can get a little bit more chunkier foods, you can start introducing small pieces of fish, because it flakes. Just make sure it's small. Real tender pieces of beef. Beef is the best source of iron for our bodies. As well as chicken. You can get iron from your chicken. Just cook it real good and cut it, maybe even pull it apart and shred it. You also want to maybe try to start including some vitamin C foods. And by this, I'm not talking about giving your baby an orange or grapefruit. No real acidic foods yet. You definitely want to wait for that for a little while. But broccoli is an excellent source of vitamin C. Maybe kiwi, maybe some strawberries, cabbage. And what we want to do with this is, as they're eating the beans and spinach, beef, or whatever, we want to go ahead and introduce some berries and some broccoli, because the vitamin C is going to help your body absorb the iron a lot better. Also, meat, the beef and the chicken, is absorbed a lot better than the beans. So just to let you know that. All right, so let's go ahead and take out our brochure that we passed out earlier, and we can open it up. I want to go ahead and take a few minutes, open it up, and I've got iron-rich foods on the inside as well as on part of the back page. Go ahead and take a look at these. and mark beside a couple of the new ingredients that you want to introduce to your children. Um, I can tell you from experience that children don't come out with a food preference. Uh, they don't have likes and dislikes yet when they're very young. Mine today had avocado, had red bell peppers, had spinach, had chicken, had black beans. Um, Basically, all the fixings for tacos minus the shell. And she had a little bit of shredded chicken. Um, but I kept it separate, and it was all small. But I mean, they eat just about anything. So look at some of these items. Put an asterisk beside it on some new things you want to pick up and introduce to your child and your family. You don't know if you like it until you try it. So find some new foods and introduce some iron-rich foods to your diet. All right, has everybody picked some? Good. All right. What I want you to do now is hold on to these papers um, and look through it when you get home. There is some information on, how much iron that children need from 4 to 6 months to 7 to 12 months, 1 to 3, as well as adolescence. It also has some of the signs and symptoms of anemia on there. Then it has the iron-rich foods, and then also on the back, I came up with a recipe, and it's a twofer. You can make your child's baby food. It's iron-rich baby food, homemade, as well as making yourself some soup. It's a two-step process. Uh, all the directions are on the back of the sheet. But what you want to do is once you puree everything up in the blender for your child, pour that into ice tray, put it in the freezer, and freeze it. So next time you want to feed your baby, pop out an ice cube of the baby food and warm it up on the stove, cool it down so it doesn't burn, and then let them have the iron-rich foods. The second half of it, the same ingredients, we just pulled some aside, is going to turn into soup. So, you making your baby some food as well as you're having soup for dinner. All right, so use that. Also, take this when you get home, and let's go ahead and I know everybody has magnets on their refrigerator, so go ahead and hang this up on your refrigerator so it's easily readable, available for you. And next time you go ahead and make your grocery list before you go to the grocery store, you can go ahead and mark down on your grocery list some of these items that you marked. Okay? All right, does anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay, well, I want to thank you for participating. And then if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to stay behind or to call me, ask questions. And also, if you have any concerns or questions, do not hesitate to contact your physician. All right? Thank you very much. Have a good night.